Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this hearing. Thanks to each of you for being here. This is an important topic. It reminds me of a time I was riding in the car with my then teenage sons a few years ago. A song came on the radio. I listened to the words of it. I concluded the words were bad, and I immediately told them, this is terrible, and I turned down the volume. My son John, at the time, without missing a beat, said, Dad, it's not bad if you don't think about it. And this is one of those things. We'd prefer not to have to think about it. This isn't bad if you don't think about it, but it's not bad only if you don't think about it. This is a crisis affecting our children. And it's not an abstract one. It's not a rare one. A 2018 Pew Research study concluded that 45% of America's teens today are online almost constantly, while another 44% are online at least several times a day. That's 89% of teens overall. And this is far from an abstract issue. Many of those people come into contact with things that harm them. Sometimes the results are severe. According to a Thorne study conducted in 2018, fully 55% of human trafficking survivors who were trafficked beginning in 2015 first encountered their trafficker online or via text message. Now, those are just sort of the extreme examples. Many others who were never trafficked end up being harmed by things that they're exposed to online. Collectively, the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store account for about 95% of app purchases in the United States. Now, to their credit, both Apple and Google use an age rating system and have some child-focused rules to prevent children from being exposed to things that they shouldn't be. And yet, some of the most popular apps sold through those stores, including things like YouTube and Snapchat and Instagram, can and often do, in fact, constantly do, provide sexually explicit content to children. And it's not just when a child is looking for that. It's happening when they input very innocent, childlike search terms that have nothing to do with sexual content. So, Mr. McKenna, I'd like to talk to you about this for a minute. What should app stores be doing differently with their rating measures to help prevent this kind of thing from happening, to help prevent providing this kind of sexually explicit content to children?
Thank you, Senator Lee. First and foremost, we simply want transparency and additional information for parents. In no other context where we know that young people are spending a lot of time do we allow for this much inaccuracy with the information that we give parents to know how to protect their kids. Like I'm envisioning more of an analog example of a toy in a toy aisle that had some of the features of some of the things that we see on apps that are used by teens, and then just telling parents, well, mixed in with all the other things that your kids love, we just want you to avoid looking at that one place. We would simply never allow that to happen. And so when it comes to the app stores, we want there to be a unification. You referred to both Apple and Google, but they use very different processes, as we explained in my written testimony, to evaluate and also to score those apps. So there's this confusion, even if you look at one or the other. We also would argue that what you get is a very generic set of descriptions that really don't tell you what's actually going on inside of the app. So this transparency of what the true interactions are. If you were to look at the App Store description in Apple for Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat, three of the top social media platforms used by kids today, you would find the exact same description. In other words, there's nothing unique to tell us about any of the predatory risks or things specific to SnapMap, which is why we connect back to, say, the ESRB, where if you were to look at some of the top games that the ESRB has rated, there is volumes of information telling you exactly what goes on, what happens to certain body parts and blood and gore, and you walk away from this description as a parent with a clear view as to what I'm going to be putting in front of my children. Now, I still have, the option, but I've been informed. So we want that unification to make them the same, make it transparent, and provide some accountability so that when players in the App Store are not giving information to parents as they should, that there's some ramifications for that. Otherwise, behavior is just never going to change.
Well said. Demanding or expecting that a child behave like a good internet citizen falls on deaf ears, especially when someone is encouraging a child to use an app that at times acts like a strip club. Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent that we submit into the record the testimony of Don Hawkins, the Senior Vice President and Executive Director for the National Center on Child Exploitation.
Without objection.